You've heard of Japan's famous samurai battles, but almost no one knows about the war that killed tens of thousands and erased an entire bloodline. A battle so devastating it reshaped Japan forever, and history tried to quietly bury it. The war nobody talks about, the Battle of Sekigahara's dark twin. When people talk about samurai warfare, almost every story circles back to the same moment, the Battle of Sekigahara, the clash that unified Japan. It's in textbooks, documentaries, anime, you name it. But what if I told you that Japan's deadliest, most emotionally devastating samurai conflict wasn't Sekigahara at all? What if the real turning point, the war that shattered an era and wiped out entire bloodlines, is a battle most people outside Japan barely even know existed? That forgotten conflict is the Siege of Ōsaka, a brutal two-part war fought between 1614 and 1615. It was the final showdown between the rising Tokugawa shogunate and the last surviving heir of the Toyotomi clan, Toyotomi Hideyori. And unlike Sekigahara, which lasted a single day, the Siege of Ōsaka stretched across months of political manipulation, winter artillery bombardments, summer infernos, heroic last stands, and betrayals so cold they still shake historians. Ōsaka Castle wasn't just any stronghold. It was the legacy of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who once united Japan before Tokugawa Ieyasu seized control. And for Tokugawa, Hideyori wasn't just a rival, he was a living reminder that the old order wasn't fully crushed. This made the siege more than a military confrontation. It was a war of legitimacy, a symbolic execution of the past. A battle fought not simply to win, but to erase. And this is why the Siege of Ōsaka matters. It wasn't about territory. It wasn't about resources. It was about wiping out the final obstacle to Tokugawa rule, no matter the cost, no matter the blood spilled. A war Japan could not afford to remember, yet cannot truly forget. A castle too strong to break. Ōsaka Castle wasn't just a fortress, it was a statement. A towering symbol of Toyotomi power built by the man who once dominated all of Japan, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Even after his death, the castle stood like a challenge thrown at Tokugawa Ieyasu. You may rule Japan, but this is still the house Hideyoshi built. And Tokugawa hated that. Ōsaka Castle was an architectural monster. Its stone walls rose so high that enemy arrows looked like toys. Its moats were so deep and wide that even experienced generals dreaded crossing them. Engineers had designed its layers to eat invading armies alive, every corridor a trap, every gate a choke point, every courtyard a killing zone. Attacking it head-on was suicide, and every samurai commander knew it. The problem for the shogunate was simple. The castle couldn't be taken by force. Not without losing tens of thousands of men. Not without potentially losing the war. So Tokugawa turned to the other forms of power he understood better than anyone: fear, manipulation, and pressure. His agents spread rumors designed to fracture loyalty. His diplomats cornered nearby clans into choosing the winning side. His advisors sent letters promising rewards to anyone willing to betray the Toyotomi. And yet, the castle held firm. Inside its walls lived a defiant mix of samurai loyalists, proud retainers, and masterless warriors searching for one last chance at glory. At their center was Sanada Yukimura, a strategist so respected that even Tokugawa's own generals feared his name. Ōsaka wasn't just a fortress, it was the last heartbeat of a dying era. And everyone knew the coming clash would decide Japan's future. Winter siege, fire, snow, and betrayal. The winter siege of 1614 didn't begin with swords clashing or warriors charging. It began with a sound Japan had barely heard in warfare: the thunder of European cannons. Tokugawa's army brought foreign artillery, massive iron guns gifted and traded by Portuguese and Spanish merchants, and unleashed them on Ōsaka Castle day and night. The explosions were so relentless that chroniclers claimed the snow around the fortress turned grey from gunpowder smoke. Yet, despite the constant bombardment, the castle didn't crack. Its walls were too thick. Its defenses too ingenious. And its defenders too determined. At the heart of that defense was Sanada Yukimura and his masterpiece, the Sanadamaru, a fortified outwork built with trenches, angled walls, and narrow approaches that forced Tokugawa soldiers into deadly bottlenecks. In battle after battle, the Sanadamaru humiliated the attackers. Musketeers lying in concealed pits fired at point-blank range. Archers rained arrows with terrifying precision. Even seasoned generals admitted they had never seen a defensive position so effective. Tokugawa Ieyasu, furious at the losses, changed strategy. If he couldn't win through strength, he would win through strategy. Envoys were sent under a white flag, offering peace. Promises were made, safety for Toyotomi Hideyori, forgiveness for the defenders, and a guarantee of coexistence. Exhausted, starving, and battered, the Toyotomi leadership accepted the treaty. But in the shadows, Tokugawa's agents moved fast. While the ink of the peace agreement was still drying, shogunate workers filled Osaka's outer moats, destroyed key walls, and sabotaged defensive structures. What the Toyotomi believed was peace was actually Tokugawa's prelude to destruction. The winter siege ended not with victory or defeat, but with betrayal disguised as diplomacy. Summer siege, the bloodbath begins. When spring finally melted the snow, Tokugawa Ieyasu returned not as a negotiator, but as an executioner. He marched toward Ōsaka Castle with an army so large that witnesses said the ground shook like thunder. Estimates place the Tokugawa force at 150,000 soldiers, one of the largest samurai armies ever gathered. Inside the castle, the Toyotomi had perhaps 60,000, many of them ronin who'd come seeking one last chance to die with honor. But the Toyotomi didn't realize how much danger they were in until it was too late. The moats that once protected them? Gone. The walls that terrified attackers? Damaged and weakened. The outer defenses that once made Ōsaka untouchable? Quietly destroyed under this peace agreement. Tokugawa had turned the strongest fortress in Japan into a cage. The summer siege of 1615 was nothing short of apocalyptic. Cannon fire lit up the night. Muskets cracked in endless volleys. Fires spread so fast that even the rivers glowed red from reflected flames. Samurai clashed in brutal close combat, armor smashing against armor, ash and blood mixing into mud beneath their feet. In the chaos, Sanada Yukimura made his final stand. Leading a fearless charge straight toward Tokugawa's command post, he broke through multiple enemy lines, cutting his way deeper and deeper into the shogunate ranks. The assault was so terrifying that Tokugawa reportedly prepared for suicide rather than risk capture. Only overwhelming numbers stopped Yukimura's advance. But heroism cannot defeat mathematics. The Toyotomi forces were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. One by one, the castle's final defenses collapsed. By the end of the summer siege, Ōsaka Castle wasn't a fortress. It was a funeral pyre. The fall of a bloodline. When the last walls of Ōsaka Castle collapsed, the battle didn't end. It descended into something far darker, a purge meant to erase the Toyotomi name from history. Flames roared through the inner citadel as Tokugawa forces surged forward, cutting down anyone who resisted, anyone who fled, and sometimes, anyone simply trapped inside. Inside the keep, Toyotomi Hideyori faced a decision no heir should ever face: surrender and be used as a political pawn, or die with dignity in the tradition of his ancestors. His mother, Yodogimi, understood exactly what the Tokugawa intended. There would be no mercy. No exile. No chance at survival. The Toyotomi bloodline had been marked for total elimination. As fire consumed the castle timbers, Hideyori and Yodogimi chose seppuku, ending their lives before the shogunate could claim them. Their deaths weren't just personal tragedies, they were symbolic, the extinguishing of the last great rival to Tokugawa rule. All across the citadel, similar scenes unfolded. Samurai women fought with naginata until they were overwhelmed. Ronin held narrow corridors even as smoke filled their lungs. Entire families refused to flee, choosing death over the humiliation of capture. Chroniclers say that the screams, the collapsing roofs, and the roar of flames merged into a single, unforgettable sound, a sound that marked the end of the Toyotomi era. By morning, Ōsaka Castle was a smoldering skeleton of stone and ash. The Toyotomi legacy was gone. Not defeated, erased. And with that erasure came the transformation of Japan itself. This wasn't just the fall of a clan. It was the death of an age. The samurai dream dies. When the flames of Ōsaka finally died, something much larger than a castle had been destroyed. An entire way of life, the world of roaming warriors, shifting loyalties, daring rebellions, and battlefield glory vanished with it. The Siege of Ōsaka wasn't just a military victory for Tokugawa Ieyasu. It was the final nail in the coffin of the Sengo era, the age when samurai lived and died by the sword. For centuries, Japan had been defined by constant war. Clans rose and fell with the seasons. Heroes emerged, legends were born, and the samurai spirit was shaped on burning fields and shattered fortresses. But after Ōsaka, that world ended overnight. Tokugawa unified Japan under an iron system of peace, control, and order. And in this new reality, samurai no longer had a purpose. Suddenly, the warrior class found themselves transforming from battlefield elites into bureaucrats, tax officers, and ceremonial guards. Their swords remained sharp, but unused symbols of status, not tools of war. Armor rusted in storehouses. Famous warhorses were replaced by palanquins and paperwork. The freedom that once defined the samurai was replaced by rules, ranks, and obedience. Many samurai struggled to adjust. Some drank away the memories of battle. Others clung to fading traditions. A few joined rebellions that were crushed before they began. But none could bring back the world that Ōsaka had buried. That's the cruel irony. The deadliest samurai battle didn't just kill warriors, it killed warriorhood itself. After Ōsaka, Japan entered 250 years of peace. Glorious for the nation. Devastating for the samurai. The age of war had ended, and the age of order had begun. Why you never heard about it? With everything that happened at Ōsaka, the bloodshed, the political betrayal, the fall of a legendary clan, you'd think it would be one of the most famous battles in the world. But outside Japan, almost no one talks about it. And that silence isn't an accident. It's the result of centuries of careful storytelling shaped by the winners. History, after all, is rarely written by the defeated. After the siege, the Tokugawa shogunate ruled Japan for over 250 years. They shaped education, culture, public memory, everything. And they had no interest in immortalizing a war that revealed the darker side of their rise to power. The official version of events emphasized stability, order, unity. A dramatic, brutal annihilation of a rival clan didn't fit that narrative. So Sekigahara, the more straightforward, more honorable battle, became the story Japan shared with the world. It was neat. It was decisive. It made sense. Ōsaka, by contrast, was messy. It involved deception, manipulated treaties, a near assassination of the shogun, and the burning of civilians trapped inside a collapsing stronghold. It represented a moment when the samurai ideal cracked and revealed something far more human and far more uncomfortable. And that's why you never hear about it. Because Ōsaka wasn't just a battle. It was a warning. A reminder that even legendary warriors can be crushed by politics. A reminder that even samurai honor can be twisted for power. A reminder that the end of an era often comes quietly, and then all at once in fire. But now you know the truth. The deadliest samurai battle wasn't lost to history. It was buried until now. The Siege of Ōsaka wasn't just a battle, it was the death of an age, the moment the samurai world collapsed under politics, betrayal, and overwhelming force. History tried to hide it, but stories like these deserve to be remembered. If you want more untold battles, forgotten warriors, and hidden chapters of history the world overlooks, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and stay with us. The past is darker and far more fascinating than anyone admits.